Hi everyone. So the topic for today is pollination. Okay, I hope I'm audible. Let me just check once. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so before I start, let me introduce myself. I'm Vani Kari, biology educator at Unacademy. I'm an engineer with bachelor's and master's degree in biotechnology and a B.Ed degree. Also a founder of a startup where I grow microgreens by vertical farming technology. So join with us in Telegram for homework and class notes. You can join the channel Vani Kari ICSE class 9 and 10 biology. Okay. And the Telegram link of Unacademy ICSE and ISC both. So this link you will find in the description box. So you can go to the description box and click on the link to get notified about the classes. So basically to have updates about the classes. Okay. All right, so just a second. Yeah. So you can also attend special classes which are absolutely free on Unacademy platform. So learn from your favorite educator for free. Engage with educators via polls. So clear your doubts in the live special classes. Okay. So for the top special classes, you can visit the link in the description. So we will be conducting a quiz. Okay. So you can take up the quiz that are happening, and once the quiz is done, so we'll be sharing the leaderboard so that you can know your rank and compete with your friends as well. So Unacademy subscription features, you can learn live from the comfort of your home. Unlimited access to all the courses will be there, like different educators will come up with the different courses, so you will have access to all the courses once you take a subscription. Okay, then top educators of India are going to take the classes in one platform, that is Unacademy platform. Then there is regular doubt clearing session. So after about every 3 session, the fourth session will be your doubt clearing session. Okay, so whatever doubts you have related to the topics that are previously covered, so you can clear your doubt in this doubt clearing session. Then complete syllabus will be covered. Mentorship and guidance is given. Study material is given, that is in the form of a PDF. Then practice test, live test series and batch courses. So now depending on your preference, you can either go for English batch, Hindi batch or a English batch. So in that case, once you take the subscription, you will have access to all the batches. Okay, then with that you have a daily practice section, weekly mock test series, then live quizzes, daily MCQ and subjective test series will also be there, so you can go for these as well. Okay, so now Unacademy plus subscription pricing. So here you can have a look at, just a second. Yeah. Okay, so for class 9, so since this is now for class 9, so you can try with 6 months of subscription. For class 10 anyway 3 months is available. For class 9 you can try with 6 months of subscription, and since this is very beginning of your class 9, you can also go with the 12 months of subscription. So for 12 months, it is around 15k, and the cost is basically when you apply this code. So that is, the code is VANIYT. So when you use the code VANIYT, so it is going to get reduced to 13.5k. So that means you are getting a 10% discount on the subscription. Okay, and big announcement for ICSE boards, the prices are rising. Act fast to save now. So you can subscribe now and you can use the same code VANIYT. So this is the code, so you can use this code to get 10% discount on the subscription. All right, so let's go to introduction part. Yes, anybody, what exactly is pollination? Anybody has any idea what is pollination? No idea. Okay, So now when we mention a pollination, so it is basically a transfer. Okay, so what is being transferred? The pollen grains are being transferred, or the male gamete. Okay, so male gamete is transferred to a female gamete. So that is basically before that, like before we talk about a fertilization. So now this pollination is a pre-fertilization event. Okay, so that means a pre-fertilization meaning is that before the fertilization occurs, so whatever events are occurring, so this now pollination is actually a pre-fertilization event it is. Okay, so why do we say that this pollination is a pre-fertilization event? So that is because just before the fertilization occurs, so there are a lot of changes that are gonna occur. Okay, so now the male gamete has to go to the female gamete, so this is a pre-fertilization. What is fertilization then? Fertilization, when we mention, so there exactly fusion of male and female, you can see here in this case it is a pre-fertilization event, not free, pre-fertilization event. Okay, so transfer of pollen from the male part of a flower to the female part. So what is that male part or a female part? So let's see this. So I'll just explain you. Okay, so now which is male reproductive part? Okay, so there is a male reproductive part. So from male reproductive part, it is basically a androecium. Okay, so in that case it is a androecium, and then there is a gynoecium that you can find. So female one is that is actually a gynoecium. So now from male reproductive part, the androecium, which can also be called as a stamen. Okay, so stamen is there. So this stamen consists of what? So stamen is having an anther. Okay, and then from anther you can find a filament also. So there is anther, there is filament. Okay, so now from the anther what is being produced? So from anther you can see that the production of pollen grain you can see. Okay, so now this pollen grain is the one which consists of the male gamete, or we can say that the male nucleus is present inside this pollen grain itself. So this is a male gametophyte, and inside that you can find a nucleus which is required. So now this is with respect to androecium. Now when we talk of a female reproductive system, so now what has to be done? This pollen grain has to reach a flower, like a flower. So that is mainly the female reproductive part, so that there is a chance that the fertilization can occur. So let's have a look at the female reproductive system now. Just a second, I'll just erase this part. Okay, so now from female reproductive system, so we can have a look at the gynoecium. Okay, so this is with respect to female reproductive system. Okay, so this is what? So this is female reproductive system. So what is the example for a female reproductive system? So this one is gynoecium. Okay, or we can also call this as a carpel. Okay, or this can also be called as a pistil. Okay, so there is a carpel, there is a pistil, or we can also name it as a gynoecium. So what exactly does this have? So now in this case we can find that, so there is a stigma. Okay, so you can find stigma in it. So stigma, then there is style, then there is ovary. So stigma, style, and ovary is there. So now where exactly this male gametophyte, that is pollen grain, is reaching? Okay, so let's see. Now in this part what we are going to discuss. So since this is a pre-fertilization event, so we will be looking at where exactly this pollen grain is going to reach. Okay, so now the pollen grain is a male gametophyte. Okay, so I'll just write this here. So pollen grain is actually a male gametophyte, which is going to reach a female reproductive part. So that is mainly it is going to reach a stigma. Okay, so it will reach a stigma, and once it reaches the stigma, so you can see a lot of changes in there, like interaction we can see. So let me just draw it here and explain it. Alright, so let's say now this is stigma here. Okay, so this one is stigma, this is style. Alright, so now what we can see, so this particular pollen grain is reached here. So there is an interaction that we can see. So interaction in what? Interaction between a pollen grain and a stigma that we can see. So basically sugar is being secreted, then water is provided. So certain secretions are done. Okay, so water is provided so that once the plant understand that this pollen grain belongs to the same species, which we call as a compatible pollen grain. Okay, so what is the meaning of compatible pollen grain? It is, if it is a rose flower, or let's say if it is a hibiscus, so then only hibiscus flower pollen grain has to come. So if a pollen grain is coming from a jasmine, if a pollen grain is coming from a lotus, so that is not a compatible one, so that is incompatible one. So now if a hibiscus has to undergo pollination or fertilization, so in that case, so same species, okay, so the flower or the pollen grain has to belong to the same species. So then only we call this as a compatible pollen grain or compatible one, so that there is a interaction that you can see between the pollen grain and then the stigma. So this will lead to germination. Okay, so this will lead to what? So this will lead to germination of the pollen grain. Okay, so that means pollen tube formation you can see inside. Okay, so this one is the pollen tube that is being formed on interaction. So these are all pre-fertilization events. So let's see this one now. So the transfer of pollen, that is from the male part of a flower to the female part of the flower, or it can be in the same plant or it can be in a different plant. Okay, so or it can be in the same plant but a different flower, so that is also possible. So we will see the different terms for that. To help fertilization. Okay, so why pollination will occur? It is to help for the fertilization to occur. So if pollination is not there, so then there is no fertilization. So now in order to help for the fertilization to occur, so this pollination has to occur. Okay, so that is called as a pollination. So you can see here there is an insect over here and there is an insect over here. So what exactly are these insects doing? Any idea? Any of you? What exactly are these insects doing here? Why have they come to this flower? So there is a flower, right? So why these insects have to come to flower? Okay, I'll tell you this. So why exactly insects are coming to flower? So that is mainly, there is this flower now. Okay, so usually when we talk of a flower, so flowers are gonna be big. Okay, so I'll just write this. The flowers, okay, so there are mainly, you can find different points with respect to this when we mention about a flower. Okay, so flower is basically, just a second. Okay, one second. This is now a flower if we mention. So flower has to be showy. Okay, so this has to be showy. So what is the meaning of this one? Showy is basically, it should be large. Okay, so this should be large, this should be attractive, the flower should be attractive. Okay, then it should also produce a scented. Okay, so it should also produce a scent. Then it should have the basically showy ones are there, large is there, so it should produce the nectaries, nectary cells are there, so nectaries are going to produce a nectar. So nectar formation also we can see. So with all this, there is a lot of ATP that is spent by this particular plant in order to make the flower large and attractive or showy, or in order to produce the scent, a good smell. Okay, so if that is there, usually the insects are getting attracted. Then a nectar also, that is like a food, so again insects are getting attracted. So here you can see in this picture, so insects will get attracted to a flower, so because of their brightly colored structure, okay, so large, attractive, or we can also say that they are brightly colored, okay. So with all these respects, so this is brightly colored, so with keeping all this in mind, so basically the pollination is going to occur based on the type of agent that has reached there. So now insect pollination has to occur, so in that case all these require things like nectar production. Then you can see there is a different changes, like the colored flower production can be seen, the scent production. So for all this, actually a lot of energy has been spent, okay. So let's have a look at the types of pollination. Yes, am I audible? Okay. Alright, so now pollination types, when we mention, so there are different types of pollination that we can come across. Okay, so there is a autogamy, there is a Geitonogamy, and then there is a Xenogamy. Okay, so let's write what exactly is autogamy, then there is Geitonogamy, Xenogamy. So these are the different types of pollination that you can come across. Okay, so now when a plant is undergoing a pollination process, so that is specifically with respect to flower, so pollen grains have to get transferred from one plant to the other plant. So this is one case. Another case is that the same plant is there, but two different flowers might be there. Okay, so male flower is on the top, the female flower is below. So in that case, within the same flower, the pollen grain is being transferred, so that can be said as a Geitonogamy. So we will see each one of this. Then there is autogamy. So autogamy is there, Geitonogamy is there, and then there is this part, so that is the Xenogamy. So Xenogamy can also be called as a allogamy. So this can also be called as a allogamy. Okay, so this is the one. Now with respect to that, so you can find a type of pollination. So there is a self-pollination, so that is within the same flower. Now this we call as a cross-pollination. So this is between the flowers. Okay, so let's have a look at this autogamy. So autogamy, this is a process. Okay, so this particular thing, so this is a process of, just a second. Alright, so yes, it is clear, right? Alright. So now autogamy, when we mention, so this is a process of self-pollination of the flower. So what is that self-pollination? So in that case, the pollen from the anthers of the flower, so is transferred to the stigma of the same flower. So let's draw this and see. Okay, so I'll just draw it here and explain it. Just a second. Okay, so let's say there is a flower now. Okay, so this is in the same flower, so there is no different plant, only one plant is there. Okay, so in that one plant only you can find only one flower, let's say. Okay, so this is only same flower, so there are no two different flowers also, so this is only one flower. So in that case we will see this part. So there is only one plant. Okay, so this is the plant. So as usual the leaves are there. Okay, so now let's see, there is a flower in this particular plant. Okay, so now this is the flower. Okay, and what exactly is autogamy here? So in the same flower, so this is the only flower. So in this flower, as usual, you know that this is since this is the only flower, this has to be bisexual flower. Why? Because if the pollination has to occur, so there are no other different flowers we are not talking about, or a different different plant. So in that case, now you can see a anther and a filament there. So now you can see this is now a anther and a filament. Okay, so then what else do you see there? So there you can find a stigma, style and the ovary. So now let's draw this one. So this is stigma, style and then you can see a ovary. So now from here, that is what, from the anther, so you can see that the anther is there. So from the anther, the pollen grain which are there, so these have to get released. So that is through the line of stromium. So once the release is done, so this is what is released, pollen grain is released, okay, which is the male gametophyte. So now these pollen grains have to reach here itself, so that is in the same flower, okay. So this is in the same flower, the pollen grains have to reach the stigma of the female reproductive part. So that means now this flower is a bisexual flower. So autogamy, when we mention, the pollen from the anther of the flower is transferred to the stigma of the same flower. So this is the stigma. So stigma of the same flower, stigma of the anther of the same flower again is releasing a anther, that is pollen grain, and from there the pollen grains are reaching the female reproductive part. So that is stigma, style and ovary. So this we call as a autogamy. So auto is basically a self, we can say, okay. So then gammy meaning here is marriage, okay. So self marriage we can say, instead of using any other particular term. So word wise, if you are going for understanding, so auto meaning is self, or on its own also we can say, okay. So this can be on its own. Then gammy is basically marriage. So self marriage is where you can find a bisexual flower, and within that bisexual flower only you can find a different there is now a anther. So this is going to release a pollen grain. So this is received by the stigma. So this is autogamy. So let's have a look at the other structures, other definitions that are there, okay. So now this is with respect to the type of pollination, that is the autogamy itself. So you can find, so there is a clistogamy, okay, then there is chasmogamy, and then we will talk about the geitonogamy. So all these are related to self only, or we can say that all these are related to only one flower, only one plant. So there is no involvement of two plants here. So let's have a look at the chasmogamy. Clistogamy we'll have a look at. Then after that I'll explain the chasmogamy. Okay. So now this part is the chasmogamy. Sorry, clistogamy. Okay. Really sorry. So this is a clistogamy. Okay. So what is the meaning of clisto now? Anybody has any idea what exactly is clisto? Okay. Just now I said. And what exactly is gammy? Yes. No idea. Okay. So let's have a look at this one. So clisto, when we mention, so it is closed. Okay. So this one is closed. Then when we mention about a gammy, so this is a marriage. So closed marriage, that means the flower has never bloomed. Okay, the flower has never bloomed. So it has remained as a closed flower itself. Okay, clisto is basically a closed one, and a gammy. So it has remained as a closed flower itself, in which you can find the anther, okay, which is responsible for pollen grain production, okay. And also you can find, so since this is a clistogamy, that is closed flower it is, so you can also find, so along with the anther, so where you can find a pollen grain, so there you can find a stigma, style and ovary as well. So inside the ovary you can find a ovule, and inside that ovule you can find the embryo sac, okay. And inside that embryo sac, what do you find? So there is basically a egg, okay. So now this pollen grain which is carrying the male gamete, the egg which is carrying a female gamete. So this one, so from male it is the male nucleus, okay. So this is male nucleus. So these two have to fuse. So only after there is a zygote formation. Okay, so that is, now since this flower is a closed flower, so there is no, this flower need not wait for any external agent, like insect should come, transfer the pollen grain, water should come, transfer the pollen grain, or human should come, transfer the pollen grain, or we can say wind should come and transfer the pollen grain. So all this is not required in case of a cleistogamy, because this is a closed flower always. Cleisto meaning is closed, gammy is marriage, so it is a closed marriage, like closed flower you can find, and inside that only you can find a male reproductive system, and inside the same flower you can find a female reproductive system. So in that case there is a combination, like if the pollination has to occur, so it's, since they are in a close proximity, as the flower is completely closed, okay, so flower has not bloomed, okay, so it is completely closed like this. So whatever pollen grains are released, so there is no space for this pollen grain to escape and go to the other place. So in that case the pollen grain is going to reach the stigma of this particular flower, and the pollination, so we can say that the pollination has occurred. So next comes the fertilization. So before that we will see the different concepts as well. So there is a chasmogamy. Okay, so what exactly is chasmogamy? Any idea? Any of you? No idea? Chasmogamy. So chasmo, like name itself suggests, like last one I told you guys that it is a cleistogamy. So cleisto is closed marriage. Okay, so gammy as usual, so this is for a marriage itself. Okay, then chasmo meaning is that, so chasmo is for open flower. So you can see this is a open flower. Okay, so as such you can see here, so this is usually, this is, let's say this is a cucumber flower. Okay, so this one is a cucumber flower. So earlier this was not bloomed. Okay, so once the pollination and everything is done, so this can bloom. So that means this can be a cleisto one. Okay, so now based on a different characteristics here, so chasmogamy, when we mention, so it is an open marriage. Like what exactly is chasmogamy or open marriage? Is it is ready to accept pollen grain from the different plants also. It is not, it is not waiting for its own pollen grain to come and reach the stigma. Okay, so here in chasmogamy basically you can find that the pollen grain is there in one particular flower, like flower is there, so there is a pollen grain which is being produced by the same flower. Okay, then there is another flower. Okay, so now this flower is actually open flower. Okay, so when this open flower is present, either from the same flower the pollen grains can reach the stigma, or the different flowers, like different flowers are there, so from different flowers the pollen grains can come fly and reach this particular open flower. So that means this is open for every pollen grain that is coming, it is ready to receive. But what is the case here? This has to be of the same species. So if different species pollen grains are coming, thank you Ankit, thank you. Okay, so if different species pollen grains are coming, so what is gonna happen? So that is gonna be rejected. Okay, so in that case we can say that, so pollen grain, if a pollen grain is compatible, okay, so compatible means belonging to the same species the pollen grain is. So let's say there is a hibiscus flower again. Now the stigma has to receive a pollen grain from the hibiscus only. Okay, so if it is receiving a pollen grain from a rose plant or from a jasmine plant, okay, or from a cucurbita, so any of the flowers might be there, so it should belong to the same species. If the pollen grain is coming from a different species, so that is not accepted, so that will be rejected by whom? That will be rejected by the stigma. So that is in the very beginning of the female reproductive part. So in that case, so you can see that the species, the pollen grain has to be a compatible pollen grain. So non-compatible or incompatible pollen grains are not accepted. So compatible pollen grain is nothing but the pollen grain belonging to the same species. We call them as a compatible pollen grain. Okay, so let's have a look at the Geitonogamy now. So what exactly is Geitonogamy? Okay, so till now what we studied, so this was only with respect to one particular plant and one particular flower. So here we are not talking about only one particular flower now. Only one particular plant is there, but another flower we can consider two flowers. Okay. So basically what is the cases? So in this case, let's say this is the one. Just a second, I'll just show you one particular plant now. So now this is a plant. Okay, so in this plant, as usual, you will find branches, the leaf and all. So all the things are gonna remain the same. Okay, so only thing is that there is one particular flower. So this is now a flower, and there is another flower down here. So let's make another flower down here. Okay, so in that case, let's say that this flower is now a male flower. Okay, so this flower is male flower and the other flower is female flower. Okay, so this is now a female flower. Okay, all right, just a second. Yeah, so this one is a female flower. So in that case, what we can say, as the pollen grains are being produced. So now this is going to produce a pollen grain since it is a male flower. So that means it will produce a male gamete. So here pollen grains are produced. So these pollen grains have to fall. So where they are falling? So either it can be transferred to the insect or this can be transferred through the wind as well. So whatever might be the case, so basically the pollen grains are reaching the stigma of this particular flower now. So that is a female flower. So you can see that this we call as a Geitonogamy. So why exactly this is Geitonogamy? So Geitonogamy is basically a neighbor marriage. Okay, so xenogamy or allogamy, when we mention, so it is a stranger marriage. So let's see this, the name meaning. So I'll just write this here. So Geitono is basically a neighbor. Okay, so this is now a neighbor. Okay, so then Gammy as usual. So Gammy meaning here is marriage. Okay, so this is a neighbor marriage. Like who is neighbor here? Neighbor flower. Okay, so in a same plant there is a neighbor flower. So there is a marriage, or there is a pollination. So transfer of a pollen grain can occur from one particular flower to the next flower in the same plant. So that we can call as a Geitonogamy. So here the neighbor marriage is occurring. Okay, so in that case, so basically let's see this. So from here to here the transfer of a pollen grain is occurring. Okay, so let's see the definition. Pollination involving two different flowers of the same plant. Okay, so two different flowers of the same plant, so that we call as a Geitonogamy. Okay, now pollen from one flower. Okay, so pollen is there, so that is from one flower is transferred to the stigma of the other flower. Okay, so pollen grain is there, so pollen is transferred from one flower, it is transferred to the other flower, so stigma of the other flower, so that is in the same plant. Okay, so you need to consider this, it is in the same plant, so that we call as a Geitonogamy. So but what do we say for a Geitonogamy? So let's see this part. I'll just explain you this. So now when we mention about the Geitonogamy, so here functionally, so functionally actually cross pollination is occurring. Okay, so functionally what is happening here? Cross pollination. So this is not self pollination here. So functionally cross pollination is occurring. So why do we say that cross pollination is occurring? Because it is not occurring in the same flower, whereas the pollination is occurring with respect to different flowers but the same plant. Okay, so in that case functionally we can say cross pollination, but genetically, okay, so genetically we can say that it is a self pollination itself. Okay, so genetically this one is a self pollination itself, because the genetic makeup of these flowers, like since they are belonging to the same plant, so genetic makeup of this plant, I mean flower, genetic makeup of this flower, so both are going to be same. Okay, so both are same. So what is that? So that is a genetic makeup. Okay, so genetic makeup is same, that is in both the flowers. So that we can say that with respect to genetic, we can say self-pollination is occurring, but with respect to function, so since the movement is not occurring in the same flower, so we can say that it is a cross-pollination. Alright, so let's go to this. Functionally it is cross-pollination, but genetically it is autogamy or self-pollination. So this occurs in plants with monoecious. What is that monoecious? So same plant is there. Okay, so this is the same plant. So you can find a female flower there, so you can find a male flower there. So this we call as a monoecious plant. Okay, so this is a monoecious. Dioecious is different plants you can find. Okay, so now this is a case of xenogamy. Okay, so what exactly is xenogamy? So xenogamy, when we mention, just a second. Yep. So xenogamy, when we mention, so you can have a look at this. So gammy is for marriage again, as usual as well. Now xeno is for we can say it is a stranger. Okay, so in your textbook, that is Selena textbook. Okay, so I'm talking with respect to Selena. So in Selena, what is given? So it is mentioned that, so for xeno they have mentioned as a allo. Okay, so allogamy, that is mentioned. Okay, so that means allo or xeno, when we mention, the meaning is that it is a stranger. Okay, so stranger marriage, not even a neighbor marriage, but a stranger marriage is occurring. Okay, so that is between completely two different plants, two different flowers. Okay, so which are functionally, though it is cross pollination itself, genetically also it is cross pollination, because genetic makeup of this plant is gonna vary from that of this plant. Okay, so here the genetic makeup is different, here the genetic makeup is different. So with respect to that, we can say that functionally to cross pollination. Okay, and so this is a cross pollination, as well as now genetically also, so genetically bhi cross pollination hi ho raha hai. So this is genetically now. Okay, so genetically also it is cross pollination itself. All right, so xenogamy is a cross pollination. So it is a process of cross pollination. All right, so in that participation of male and a female parts of two different flowers from two different plants. So here it is not just one plant, so two different plants you will come across. So now pollen grains from the flower of one plant, so that is going to fertilize ovules in the flower of the another plant. Okay, so in that case, so pollen grain is already, so that is there from one flower. Okay, so that is going to fertilize ovules in the flower of the another plant. So now this type of pollination ensures genetic diversity of the species. So what is the genetic diversity here? Since the genetic makeup of this plant, these two plants are going to change, so we can say that the genetic diversity is going to change. All right. All right, so no doubt, right? Okay, so let's get with the next one. So this is what they have shown, self-pollination, which can also be called as the autogamy. Okay, so then this one autogamy, because you can see that the pollination is occurring within the same flower. So now this we call, this is a neighbor now. So this is a neighbor flower, so it is a Geitonogamy. Okay, so that means same plant itself. So because all the plant, all the flowers are in the same plant here. So but the pollen grain is being transferred from one flower to the other one. Now here you can see the plant A is there. So this is plant A now and this is plant B. So cross pollination, allogamy, or this can also be mentioned as a xenogamy, so which is basically a stranger marriage. Okay, so in that case another plant of the same species. So with respect to that we can see here, now here is this flower. So pollen grains are being transferred from this flower to the other flower like of the other plant. Okay, so genetic makeup of this plant, the genes in this particular plant are going to be different. Okay, genetic makeup of this plant is going to be different. So because of their genetic makeup diversity, so let's say this plant might be having a better adaptable capacity in this particular environment, whereas the other plant which is there. So now let's say that this plant might not be that good with the adjustment to this particular environment. So in that case, when the genetic makeup is going to change between the plants, so now this is one plant, this is one plant, so as the genetic makeup is going to vary, so there might be a betterment of this plant species based on the variation of the genetic makeup. So that is the reason always the plants are going to favor. Okay, so plants always favor cross pollination. So they never go for only if it is not possible, then in that case the self pollination can be seen, or otherwise the plants usually favor the cross pollination. Okay, so that is because of the genetic makeup. So genetic diversity can be achieved so that there can be better adaptability. Hi Kashyap Astro, good evening. Alright, so let's go with the next one. So advantages and disadvantages of self-pollination. Okay, so 1 second, I'll just change the color. Alright, so now advantages and disadvantages of self-pollination. So what are the advantages here? Okay, so now it is much surer in such bisexual flowers where stamen and carpel mature at the same time. Okay, so what is self-pollination? So basically in the same flower the pollination is occurring. Okay, so now there is a case that usually when a pollination has to occur, so maturation of the female gamete, maturation of the male gamete has to occur at the same time. Okay, so now if the time is gonna vary, so then there is no self-pollination. So if a plant wants to favor cross-pollination but not self-pollination, in that case it is going to change that maturation time, like female is going to mature at some other timing, okay, and male is going to mature at some other timing, so that there is no self-pollination occurring. But some of the plant where there is no option of cross pollination, so they will go for the self pollination itself. So it is a much surer case in which you can see that is mainly a bisexual flower which is having male as well as a female. So stamen and carpel are going to mature at the same time. Okay, now parental characters are preserved. So what is the meaning of this one? So since it is the same genetic makeup, because it is the same plant itself, so you can see that the parental character, so whatever parental character, whatever the parental plant character was there, so same character will be maintained for their progeny as well. That is the baby plant who is gonna produce, like will be produced later on, so that will have the same characteristics that of a parent. Okay, now there is no wastage because there itself within the same flower the transfer of pollen grain is occurring. So there is no wastage of a pollen grain. Even a small quantity of pollen, if it is produced, a little of pollen is produced, so that is more than sufficient. Okay, then flowers need not be large and they need not be showy because it need not attract any insect, any human or anything. Okay, so basically pollinating agents itself are not required because it is going to do the pollination on its own. So in that case we can say that the flowers don't need, flowers don't need this particular flower to be all beautiful, or maybe we can say large, or it need not be showy. So basically if it is having the basic requirement like male reproductive part, female reproductive part, so that is more than sufficient. Okay, so scent and nectar need not be produced by the flower. So why exactly these are being produced? So these two are being produced, that is to attract the insect. Okay, so these are going to, like, usually the flower or a plant produces all these things, so that is to attract the insect. Now as the pollination is a self-pollination, so it is not a cross-pollination, so you need not waste your energy in attracting an insect. Like, you need not waste your energy in forming a scent or in forming a, like, nectar. So in that case the plant is not going to waste its energy, like, for the formation of nectar or maybe for the formation of a scent. So in that case, this is going to save all the ATP that is required for different processes. So in that case, so this is again an advantage. Now all the above advantages mean great economy, because there is lot of energy consumption, like, I mean not consumption, the conservation, like, storage is done on the part of the plant. So now a lot of nutrient material which would otherwise be used in the production of pollen, nectar, scent, large petal, etc. So all that energy is being saved. So all the nutrient, all the energy, so everything is being saved. So that is the advantage of this one. So now what exactly might be the disadvantage of this one? Okay, so now when we mention about a disadvantage, one second. Okay, so there is continued self-pollination. So if the self-pollination only goes on occurring, like, same plant is there, so that is the same parental plant, then same flower is there. Okay, so in that flower you can see that repeatedly the pollen grain is being transferred, the stigma will receive, so repeatedly the same thing is happening. So you can find some genetic disorders. Okay, so there might be genetic disorders which might be present in this plant. Okay, so genetic disorder in the sense, like, it might not be having a better adaptability to the surrounding. So now this is the condition. So let's say this condition is a hot condition, or maybe this condition is a cold condition. So this plant which is growing in that condition, so it is not able to adjust to that condition. So at a certain period of its life, so this is going to die soon. So if we are saying that, so in all these cases, if the self-pollination goes on occurring, so same parental character will be maintained. So there is no betterment of this plant. So if a cross-pollination occurs, so the other plant which might be there, so that might be better adaptable. Okay, so in that case you can see that the other plant is growing well, other plant is doing well compared to your plant. Okay, so in that case that plant is having a better adaptability, the genetic makeup is good. Okay, so only if a cross pollination occurs, so there is a change in a genetic makeup, or otherwise if continued self-pollination goes on occurring, so we can see that the weakening of the variety. So whatever future generation is produced by this plant, so those plants can be weaker because there is no genetic combination occurring, because all the genes are coming from the same parent itself. So there is no better adaptability. So the seeds produced through it are poor in quality, so poor quality seeds might be there, and can give rise to less vigorous offspring. Okay, so like there might not be offspring formation itself. All right. Now with weaker or defective characters of the variety or breed cannot be eliminated. So what is that weaker or defective? So this is what I said in this point. So that is, if any point or any of the category we can say, or maybe like let's say the plant might be not feeling like so this is too susceptible for less water condition, or this might be too susceptible for the hot weather. So any of the conditions are there, or that is a weaker category or a defective character, what is it? So in that case, if the self-pollination is occurring, the breed cannot be improved, or we cannot eliminate that defective character, because same genetic makeup is being continued. Okay, so if we have to remove that and if we want to make this plant further stronger, so in that case the genetic combination has to occur. That means cross pollination has to occur. Okay, now it does not yield new varieties. Okay, so genetic traits of the same plant with no change and without any intermixing, so these are passed on to the next generation. Okay, so this is not going to yield any variety because there are no varieties, because it is coming from the same plant itself, so you do not find any varieties there. So this is going to be same as like a copy of a parent itself. So in that case there is a little chance for the improvement in the next generation. Okay, so the other one case is, just a second. Okay, now advantages of cross pollination, when we mention, the offspring is going to be healthier. Okay, so we can find a healthy offspring because two genetic combinations we can see. Okay, so two of the genetic species combining, the seeds produced here are abundant. Okay, so abundant seed production, like many seeds are produced because again it is a different combination and this can be viable as well, like living seeds. Then new varieties may be produced, so that is by cross pollinating two different varieties of the same species or even two species. Okay, so in that case variety can be produced. Just a second. Alright, so now with respect to disadvantages of a cross pollination. So pollination is not always certain because some pollinating agent is always needed which may or may not be available. So in this case always pollinators are required. Okay, so who are those pollinators? Like it can be insect, it can be human, it can be elephant, it can be bird, or it can be wind, it can be water, anything. Okay, so basically pollinators are required. So without the pollinator, so there is no cross pollination occurring. Okay, so that is one disadvantage, but advantages are better as comparatively. Then pollen has to be produced in a larger quantity. Again this is a waste of energy by the plant, like waste of a nutrient, because even though large amount of pollen grains are produced, so only few are going to reach. Okay, not all of them will reach, only few pollen grains are going to reach that stigma. Rest of the pollen grains, they'll fall on the floor, like on the, like wherever it is transfer is occurring, so they'll fall off there itself. So pollen has to be produced in large quantity to ensure chances of pollination, which means a lot of wastage of a pollen. Okay, now the process is uneconomical for the plant. Okay, so that is because the flower have to be large, again they have to be colored, they have to be scented and have to produce nectar. So for all this a lot of energy is required, a lot of nutrient is required, so that is to attract this pollinating agent. So you go to a flower, like let's say now I am a pollinator. Okay, so it's going to touch all the different flowers, like human is a pollinator. So in that case I'll go to that flower if it is attractive. Okay, so if it is not so beautiful, it is tiny, so we won't concentrate on it much. But if it is more beautiful, what do we do? So we just go near that, we try to touch it, so we even try to pluck it, which is not a good thing. But yes, so we are going to that, we are we are trying to touch it. So once we touch it and then we touch a different plant, so there is a chance that, okay, so there is a chance that we can also transfer a pollen grain. Now I'm touching one particular flower, then I'm touching the other flower. So whatever pollen grains are attached onto the hand, so these can be transferred to the other one. So in that case the flower need to be attractive, the flower needs to have a good scent, the flower has to have a nectar. So in that case it can attract more and more pollinators or pollinating agent. So who are those agents of pollination? So many external agencies are responsible for pollination. So that is in case of a angiosperm. Okay, so what is that now? Okay, so what is that? So they are broadly divided into abiotic and biotic agents. So plants have accepted to promote the action of pollinators. So let's see this part. Okay. So now abiotic ones are there. So that is wind and water. So you will study about this one in detail in this chapter itself, but not today's session. Then there is agents of pollination, which is actually a biotic one. Okay. So under biotic we can see, so there are reptiles, there are insects, then there are birds, then there are mammals. So you will come across different the abiotic ones who can transfer. Okay, so who can transfer this pollen grain. So there can be reptile, there can be insect. So let's see that. So now other agents of pollination which can be listed under any of these. Okay, which can be listed under reptile, insect, or bird or mammal. So let's have a look at this one now. Okay, so now other agents of pollination can be insect or ant itself. So all these are like under the category insect itself. So beetles might be there, or wasps might be there, animals might be there, birds might be there. Okay, the bats or the herbivores. Okay, so any of these can transfer these pollen grains from one flower to the other flower. Okay, so that the pollination is gonna be happening. Okay, so any doubt till here, any of you? So any doubt you have, you can ask. Okay, so no doubt. All right, so let's so we just saw like pollination and its types. Okay, so let's go to the next session. I'll go with the next. I think I have already given a topic. Maybe it is on for class 9. No, yeah, I'll anyway inform you guys. I think I have already given one session. I don't remember the topic. Anyway, so let's see that. Alright, so before I end the session, so let me see about certain batches that we have. Okay, so now this is the Guardians batch. Okay, so in Guardians batch, so this is basically a all subject batch for ICSE class 9, and the start date is May 4th. So that means the batch has started. So you can watch the recordings that are happening. So here the recordings are anyway there. Okay, just a second. Yeah, so recordings you can anyway watch. So with that, so there are yet many live classes that are yet to happen, so you can attend the live session also. Any doubts that you get, you can join the respective educator telegram group and you can clear your doubts as well. And here the mode of delivery is English. If you're subscribing for class 9, you will be getting class 10, 11 and 12 subscription also absolutely free along with this. So in the meanwhile, when you have a time, so you can prepare for those sessions as well. I mean those classes as well. So Avengers, so the start date is May 11th, like one class is already done. So here also you have an option to watch the recording, and rest of the classes you can anyway attend the live session. And here the mode of delivery is English. So again PCMB, like physics, maths, chemistry and biology are being covered. So you can go for any of or any of these batches mainly. And yeah, so if you are subscribing for class 9, so class 10, 11, 12 subscription absolutely free. Also we are introducing introducing a community, so never miss on any update from your favorite educator. So get session notes and practice material, share your feedback directly with the educator via poll. Okay, then you have opportunity for all learners to report any inappropriate content in the video. So be the first one to report a particular issue to claim your prize. Report any inappropriate content using the form in the description. Also, how you can watch my special classes, all you need to do is download the Unacademy Learner app. Open the app and click on get started. Then you can enter your mobile number and OTP, sign up using your email ID. Okay, so once you do that, you can select the class 6 to 12, then select your class, that is your category that you need to select, ICSE. Then you can select your preferred language, so be it English, Hindi or English. Then go to the description of this video, click on the special class link, click on notify me, and you will get notified about the classes 10 minutes before the class begins. Also you can use my code. So my code is VaniYT. So you can use this code to unlock many of the free products that are there on Unacademy, or you can also use this VaniYT code to get 10% discount on the subscription. Okay, so this is there. All right, so download the Unacademy learner app now. So thank you all. So see you all in the next session. Okay, so click on bell icon to get notified about the session. Subscribe to our channel, that is Unacademy ICSE and ISC boards. Like and share the video. Download the Unacademy learner app now. This PDF, if you need, you can just inform me on my Telegram group and I'll be sending it there. So okay, so only if you need, I'll send it there. So this is my Telegram link, or you can just search this in my Telegram, like Vani Kari. In your Telegram you can search, so Vani Kari ICSE class 9 and 10. If you search it, so you will find my channel. So class 9 and 10 biology it is. Okay, so if you just search that, so you will find my channel and you can join this channel. All right, okay then, so see you all in the next session. Bye bye everyone, thank you so much, take care.